My name is Maya Bennett. I'm 28 years old. And until the night of Ryan Cole's birthday, I honestly believed betrayal was something that happened to other women. Women in sad podcasts. Women in messy family group chats. Women who ignored warning signs for years and then said, "I should have known." I never thought I would become one of them. Ryan had just turned 28. And I wanted his birthday to feel unforgettable. Not flashy in a fake way. Not some social media performance. But the kind of night where he would look around the table and realize he was loved. We had been together for 3 years. Not married yet, though everyone kept asking when it would happen. We shared a house. A car payment under my name. Weekend routines. Inside jokes. Grocery lists. And the kind of quiet familiarity that makes you believe someone is permanent. Things weren't perfect. What relationship is? But I thought we were solid. I was the woman who remembered his favorite snacks after long shifts. I was the one who planned small dates even when work left me exhausted. I knew how he liked his coffee, which shirt he wore when he was nervous, and the exact look on his face when he pretended something didn't bother him. So when his birthday came around, I went all out. I booked his favorite Italian restaurant, the one with the dim amber lights and the old brick walls. I invited his close friends, my parents, his parents, a few cousins, and my younger sister Emma. I ordered a custom cake with dark chocolate layers and espresso cream because Ryan always said sweet things tasted better when they were a little bitter. That should have been my first warning. And then there was the gift. A diamond bracelet. He had pointed it out months earlier, while we were walking past a boutique window downtown. He laughed when he said it was ridiculous. Too expensive. Too dramatic. But his eyes stayed on it longer than they should have. So I saved for it. Every extra shift. Every skipped lunch. Out. Every little luxury I talked myself out of. I wanted to see his face when he opened it. The night started perfectly. Ryan laughed louder than anyone. My dad raised a toast. My mother cried a little. Because she cried you at anything involving candles and family. Emma nudged me under the table and whispered, "You really did all this for him." I smiled and said, "He deserves it." Looking back, I wish I could reach across that table and shake myself. Ryan kept checking his phone, not constantly, just enough that I noticed a glance under the table, a thumb moving too quickly, his smile fading for half a second before returning like a mask. "Everything okay?" I asked. He leaned over and kissed my cheek. "Perfect. You're perfect." That word should have felt warm. Instead, for reasons I couldn't explain then, it felt rehearsed. Dinner continued. Plates of pasta came and went. Wine glasses clinked. Someone told an embarrassing story about Ryan from college. And everyone laughed. I watched him across the candlelight, trying to memorize the happiness on his face. Then, double Ina, somewhere between dinner and the cake, he disappeared. At first, I didn't panic. Maybe he went to the restroom. Maybe he stepped outside for air. The restaurant was loud, crowded, warm, from too many bodies and too much laughter. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. I leaned toward Emma. "Have you seen Ryan?" She looked around. "No? Didn't he go that way?" She nodded toward the back hallway near the restrooms. I stood, smoothing my dress, even though my hands were suddenly cold. I checked near the bar first. Nothing. Then the front entrance. Nothing. I even stepped outside into the night air, where rain had left the pavement shining like black glass. "No, Ryan," When I came back inside, I noticed a narrow hallway beside the restrooms, half hidden behind a velvet curtain. At the end of it was a storage area and a coat closet. That was when I heard voices, low, hushed, too close. A woman laughed softly. My stomach dropped before my mind understood why. I walked forward, each step slower than the last. The hallway smelled like lemon cleaner and old wine. At the end, the coat closet door was not fully closed. A thin blade of phone light cut through the gap. I knew before I opened it. Some part of me knew, but knowing and seeing are two very different kinds of pain. I pushed the door open. Ryan was inside with Vanessa Hale, his ex-girlfriend. The woman he had promised was ancient history. The woman whose name appeared on his phone weeks earlier and made him say, "Relax, Maya. She's just going through something." Her hands were in his hair. His hands were at her waist. They were kissing like they had forgotten the world existed. Like I wasn't standing outside the door. Like I hadn't spent months saving for a bracelet now, sitting wrapped in silver paper under his birthday chair. For one frozen second, nobody moved. Ryan's face went pale. Vanessa stepped back, but not far enough. "Maya," he said. "Just my name. Not sorry. Not wait. Not let me explain. Just my name." Like he was disappointed I had interrupted. Something inside me cracked so cleanly, I almost heard it. Vanessa looked at me with wide eyes. But beneath the shock, I saw something else. Relief. As if she had been waiting for this. Ryan raised his hands. "It's not what it looks like." I laughed. It came out sharp and ugly. "Not what it looks like," I said. "You're kissing your ex-girlfriend in a coat closet during your birthday dinner. What exactly should it look like?" Vanessa whispered. "It just happened." I turned to her slowly. "Don't." Ryan stepped toward me. "Maya, please. We can talk." I looked past him at the coats, swaying on their hangers. At the phone, still glowing on the floor. At Vanessa's lipstick smeared near his mouth. Then I looked back at the man I had loved for 3 years. "No," I said. "We're done talking." His face twisted. "You don't mean that?" "I do. Maya, please. Don't do this here." That almost made me smile. He was worried about the scene. Not the betrayal. Not the woman standing in front of him, with her heart still beating, only because anger had taken over the job. "You're right," I said quietly. "I won't do it here." Then I walked away. I didn't go back to the table. I didn't explain anything to my parents. His parents. Or the friends waiting for cake. I grabbed my purse, my keys, and the small silver gift bag from under Ryan's chair. The bracelet was coming with me. Outside, the rain had started again. I sat in my car for almost 10 minutes before I could breathe normally. Through the restaurant window, I could see shadows moving, people turning their heads, confusion spreading from one face to another. Ryan called me 3 times before I even left the parking lot. I ignored every call. I drove until the streets blurred. I ended up at a 24-hour diner on the edge of town. Sitting alone in a booth with coffee I never drank. My phone kept lighting up. "Ryan, please answer." "Ryan, it wasn't planned." "Ryan, I messed up." "Ryan, don't throw away 3 years." 3 years. As if I was the one throwing them away. Near midnight, Emma called. I answered because I knew she would keep calling until I did. Her voice was quiet. "Maya, what happened?" I stared out at the rain sliding down the diner window. "He kissed Vanessa," I said. "In the coat closet." There was silence. Then Emma said, "I'm coming to get you." That was when my throat finally closed. "No," I whispered. "I just need to sit here for a minute." Are you safe? I'm safe. But I wasn't. Not really. Because something had changed in me that night. Something soft had hardened. Something trusting had gone silent. When I finally went home, Ryan wasn't there. Good. I didn't want to see him. I locked the door, leaned against it, and slid down to the floor. For the rest of the night, I replayed every moment. The phone glances, the strange smile, the way Vanessa had arrived late and hugged him too long, the way my mother had said, "Isn't it nice? She still gets along with him?" Were there signs? Had I missed them because love made me stupid? By morning, Ryan had sent 32 messages. They started with, "Can we talk?" Then became, "You misunderstood." Then, "I'm sorry." Then finally, "Please don't ruin my life over one mistake." One mistake. That was what he called it. By noon, my mother called. I thought she was checking on me. I thought she would be furious for me. I thought, like any daughter would, that my parents would stand beside me without hesitation. Instead, she said, "Maya, Ryan told us you two had a fight." I gripped the phone tighter. He was kissing Vanessa at the restaurant. I said, "His ex-girlfriend. In a closet." My mother went quiet. Then she sighed. Not gasped. Not cursed. Not asked if I was okay. She sighed. "We'll talk later," she said. And that was the first moment I realized Ryan's betrayal might not be the worst one waiting for me. The next 2 days felt unreal. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ryan and Vanessa in that coat closet. His hand on her waist, her fingers tangled in his hair. I kept asking myself the same question. How long? Was that the first time? Or just the first time I caught them? I avoided everyone. I ignored most of the messages, piling up on my phone. Friends texted to ask if I was okay. A few relatives called, probably because the story had already started making its rounds. I wasn't ready to talk. Then my mother called. "Maya," she said, her voice strangely formal. "Your father and I need to speak with you. Come over tonight." I almost said no, but part of me still believed my parents would come to their senses. Maybe they needed time to process everything. Maybe they wanted to comfort me in person. I drove to their house after work. The second I walked through the front door, I knew something was wrong. Dad sat at the dining table with his arms crossed. Mom paced near the kitchen island, twisting her wedding ring around her finger. Neither of them hugged me. Neither of them asked how I was holding up. "Sit down," my father said. A chill crawled up my spine. I sat. Mom took a deep breath. "We need to talk about Ryan and Vanessa." My stomach turned. I thought they were going to tell me Ryan had apologized. Instead, my mother said, "What happened wasn't ideal." I blinked. "Wasn't ideal. But these things happen," she continued. For a moment, I honestly thought I had misheard her. "These things happen," I repeated. Dad leaned forward. "Honey, we're not saying what they did was right." "Good," I said, because it wasn't. "But," he continued, "if Ryan and Vanessa have feelings for each other." I stared at him. "You can't force them to stay apart." Silence filled the room. Then I laughed. A short, disbelieving laugh. "You can't be serious." "Maya, no." I stood up. "No. Explain this to me. My boyfriend cheated on me with his ex-girlfriend at his birthday party. And your response is that maybe they're in love." Mom's face tightened. "People make mistakes." "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary," I snapped. "A mistake is buying the wrong birthday gift." This wasn't a mistake. This was betrayal. Decide who. You're angry. Of course I'm angry. We just don't want this family torn apart. I stared at him. There it was. That was what this was really about. Not my heartbreak. Not my humiliation. Not the fact that I had been cheated on. They were worried about family dinners. About awkward holidays. About keeping the peace. I felt something inside me go cold. You're choosing them. No. Mom said quickly. We're not choosing sides. Yes. You are. Maya, you're asking me to accept this. We're asking you to be mature. I actually took a step backward. Mature. Mom's voice softened. If Ryan and Vanessa truly care about each other. I held up my hand. No. She frowned. No what? No. Don't finish that sentence. Dad rubbed his forehead. Sweetheart. No. Don't call me sweetheart right now. The room fell silent. I looked at both of them. These were the people who raised me. The people who kissed, scraped knees, and celebrated graduations, and promised they would always protect me. And somehow, somewhere, they had decided that my pain was less important than everyone's comfort. You know what hurts the most, I said quietly. Mom looked up. I expected this from Ryan. I didn't expect it from you. Maya, you should be furious. We are upset. No. You're inconvenienced. Dad's jaw tightened. That's not fair. Fair, I laughed bitterly. Fair would have been not getting cheated on. Nobody spoke. I picked up my purse. I'm leaving. Mom stood quickly. Please don't make this worse. I looked at her. I'm not the one who made this worse. I walked toward the front door. Maya, my father called. I turned. You need to move on. Those 4 words hit harder than I expected. Move on. As if my relationship had been a spilled drink. As if my trust hadn't just been shattered. As if my life hadn't changed forever. I opened the door. You know what I said quietly. Maybe I will move on. They both looked relieved. I shook my head. But I'll be moving on from all of you. Then I left. I cried in my car. Not because of Ryan. I think I had already started grieving that relationship. The moment I opened that closet door. No. I cried because my parents had just broken my heart too. My phone started ringing before I even pulled out of the driveway. Mom. I ignored it. Dad. Ignored. Then messages started coming. Please come back. You're overreacting. Let's discuss this calmly. I turned my phone upside down on the passenger seat. An hour later, it rang again. Emma. I answered immediately. Hey. There was a pause. You okay? No. I figured. I took a shaky breath. They took his side. I know. You know, Mom called me. I laughed bitterly. Of course she did. Emma Saihu. Maya. They're acting like idiots. Thank you. I mean it. I got into an argument with them. I blinked. You did? Yeah. Dad kept talking about family unity, and I asked him what kind of family protects the people who cheated. A tiny smile appeared on my face. That sounds like you. Mom cried. Also sounds like Mom. Emma laughed softly. Then her voice turned serious. You don't deserve this. The tears I'd been fighting returned. I know. No. She said firmly. I mean it. Ryan and Vanessa are awful. And Mom and Dad are wrong. I closed my eyes. Thank you. You don't have to thank me for telling the truth. We stayed on the phone for almost an hour. She listened while I talked through everything. The signs I missed. The embarrassment. The anger. The fact that I suddenly felt stupid for loving someone so completely. You're not stupid, Emma said. I bought him a diamond bracelet. That makes you generous. I bought him a car. That makes you loving. I planned his entire birthday. That makes him an idiot for losing you. I laughed through my tears. Thanks. Any time. Before hanging up, She said something I never forgot. You know, sometimes the people who betray you don't destroy your life. What do you mean? They reveal who never deserved a place in it. After the call ended, I sat in my driveway for a long time. Then I walked into my house. Ryan's things were still there, his jacket on the chair, his shoes by the door, a mug in the sink. I suddenly couldn't breathe. I gathered every photo of us from the living room. The beach vacation, Christmas, our anniversary. I put them all in a box. Then I sat on the floor and stared at it. 3 years. Gone. The next morning, I woke up to 14 new messages. 10 from Ryan. 3 from my mother. 1 from Vanessa. I opened hers first. I'm sorry. We didn't mean to hurt you. I stared at the message. Then, another one arrived. Ryan and I didn't plan for this to happen. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because I couldn't believe the audacity. I blocked her. Then Ryan called. He let it ring. Then another call. Then another. Finally, I answered. What? Maya, he said softly. Thank God. What do you want? I miss you. I almost dropped the phone. You miss me? Yes. You're with Vanessa. Silence. It's complicated. I closed my eyes. Of course. It was complicated. Cheaters always love that word. You humiliated me, I said quietly. I know. You lied to me. I know. You destroyed our relationship. Silence. Then he whispered, I never meant for this to happen. There it was again, as if betrayal was some kind of weather event. I don't care. I said, Maya, no. Listen carefully. I don't want explanations. I don't want apologies. And I definitely don't want you calling me to tell me you miss me. He sounded desperate. Can we at least talk in person? No. Please. No. You owe me that. I sat upright. I owe you. You owe our relationship. Our relationship ended in a coat closet. Silence. Then I hung up. 10 minutes later, my mother called. I didn't answer. A text appeared instead. Ryan is devastated. I stared at it. Then another, please don't ruin his future because of one mistake. I looked at the message for a long time. Then I turned off my phone completely. Because for the first time in my life, I realized something. That people who hurt you the most are often the same people who expect you to make their lives easier afterward. And I was done doing that. I had no idea then that things were about to get even worse. Because Ryan wasn't finished asking for things he didn't deserve, and neither was Vanessa. A week passed. I tried to focus on work, on sleeping more than 4 hours a night, on rebuilding some kind of normal life. But betrayal has a strange way of lingering. It follows you into grocery stores. It sits beside you during quiet dinners. It appears in random songs on the radio. I was finally starting to feel numb when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Almost. Then I opened the message. Maya. Please talk to me. Ryan. Of course. I was about to block the number when another message arrived. I think I should keep the bracelet. It was a gift. After all, I stared at the screen. Then I read it again. And again. The nerve of this man. The diamond bracelet. The one I had saved for months to buy. The one I had nearly given him before finding him in that closet. He thought he deserved to keep it. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was unbelievable. The next message appeared. I know you're angry. But it's still mine. Mine. I put my phone down and walked into the kitchen. Then I picked it up again. Then I put it down. I was furious. Not because of the money. Because somehow, Ryan still believed he was the victim. As if cheating had earned him compensation. As if I owed him a parting gift for destroying our relationship. I didn't answer. Instead, I started thinking I had given him the bracelet before dinner. He had opened it in front of everyone, kissed my cheek, and thanked me. But I had the receipt. I had proof I purchased it, and suddenly, something inside me shifted. No, I wasn't going to let him keep it. Not because I needed the money, because I refused to let the symbols of my love become trophies for my betrayal. I did some asking around. It turned out Ryan had moved into a small apartment across town. Apparently, Vanessa was staying there too. I shouldn't have been surprised. What did surprise me was hearing that both of them were struggling financially. Apparently, love didn't pay rent. I almost smiled at that. Then, I remembered something else. Ryan still worked at the luxury clothing boutique downtown. I had been there dozens of times. I knew he kept personal belongings in his locker. The next morning, I drove there. I walked inside, pretending to browse. A young employee greeted me politely. I smiled, just looking. Then I saw him. Ryan stood near the back of the store, helping a customer. When he noticed me, all the color drained from his face. Maya. I walked toward him. What are you doing here? I'm here for the bracelet. He blinked. What? The diamond bracelet. His eyes widened. Seriously? Yes. You can't be serious. I crossed my arms. Oh. I am. It was a gift. It was a gift for my boyfriend. He looked hurt. You're being cruel. I almost laughed. Cruel. Interesting choice of words. You cheated on me with your ex-girlfriend. I know. You lied to me. I know. You humiliated me in front of everyone. He lowered his eyes. And somehow, I'm the cruel one. Maya, give me the bracelet. No. I took a slow breath. Ryan. I don't want a scene. Then leave. I nodded. Fine. I reached into my purse. Then I suppose I'll have to explain the situation to your manager. His eyes widened. You wouldn't. Try me. Unfortunately for him, his manager had already noticed our conversation. A middle-aged woman approached us. Everything okay here? Ryan swallowed. Yes. No. I said calmly. Actually, no. I explained everything. I showed her the receipt. I explained that the bracelet had been purchased by me and that ownership was disputed following the end of our relationship. The manager looked increasingly uncomfortable. Then she looked at Ryan. Do you have the bracelet? He didn't answer. Ryan, he sighed. Yes. Please get it. His face turned bright red. Megan. No. He looked at me with disbelief. I looked back without blinking. A minute later, he returned, carrying the small black box. He practically threw it into my hands. Happy now. I opened it. The diamond sparkled under the store lights. I remembered how excited I had been buying it. I remembered wrapping it. I remembered believing love lasted forever. Then I closed the box. Yes, I said quietly. Actually, I am. I walked out. My hands trembled once I reached the parking lot. Not from fear, from relief. I wasn't reclaiming jewelry. I was reclaiming a piece of myself. Later that afternoon, I sold the bracelet. I didn't care about getting full value. I used part of the money to buy myself a new laptop and put the rest into savings. The same evening, another message arrived. Ryan, you're pathetic. You stole my bracelet. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. The next morning, my mother called. Against my better judgment, I answered. Hello, Maya. I already knew. Ryan called you. She sighed. He's upset. I'm sure he is. He said you took the bracelet. I did. Silence. Then, was that really necessary? I looked at the ceiling. Mom, are you serious? He loved that bracelet. I laughed. A loud, bitter laugh. He loved it. Maya, no. Mom, I loved him. That's why I bought it. Silence. Then she whispered, "You're being spiteful." I closed my eyes. "Goodbye, Mom." I hung up. 2 days later, karma delivered another opportunity. My friend Eric called. Eric worked at a dealership. "Maya, hey, I think I just saw your car." I sat up. "What?" "The red coupe." I froze. "Are you sure?" "Positive." "Who's driving it?" There was a pause. "A woman and a guy." I didn't need more details. Vanessa and Ryan. Apparently they had brought it in for maintenance. I slowly stood. The red coupe. I had bought it last year. An anniversary gift. It wasn't new, but it was beautiful. And legally, it was still under my name. I had made every payment, every insurance payment, every registration renewal, everything. A cold smile spread across my face. "Eric," I said. "Yeah, don't let them leave with it." Silence. Then, "Oh, exactly." The next morning, I arrived at the dealership carrying a folder full of paperwork. The title, the insurance, registration, everything. Eric had already explained the situation to his boss. Within 15 minutes, I was holding the keys. I walked outside and stared at the red coupe. For a moment, I remembered giving Ryan those keys, how happy he had looked, how proud I had been. Then I remembered the closet, the lies, the betrayal. I climbed into the driver's seat and smiled. Driving that car home felt strangely liberating, as if I was taking back more than a vehicle. I was taking back my power. It didn't take long. My phone exploded. "Ryan, Vanessa." Ryan again. I ignored every call. Then came the texts. "Why did you take the car? We need it. You're being petty. Please give it back." I laughed. Petty. Interesting. 20 minutes later, another call. Unknown number. I answered. "Maya." "What the hell?" Ryan. "Hello to you too." "You took the car?" "Yes." "You can't do that." "Actually, I can. We need it." I nearly choked. Need. Another interesting word. "You and Vanessa can take the bus." "Maya, the car is in my name." "You're being unreasonable." "No," I said calmly. "I'm being single." Silence. Then he started shouting. I hung up. 10 minutes later, Emma called. She was laughing so hard she could barely speak. "You are my hero." I smiled. "Why?" "Ryan and Vanessa are losing their minds." "Really? They're stranded." I laughed. Apparently, the two of them had been relying on the car for everything. Work, groceries, job hunting, everything. Without it, they had no transportation. "Oh no," I said dramatically. "That's terrible." Emma laughed harder. "Mom is freaking out." "Of course she is. She says you should have warned them." I nearly dropped my phone. Warned them. Apparently taking the car without notice wasn't nice. I burst out laughing. "Oh, that's rich." "I know." Then Emma lowered her voice. "You know what's even better?" "What?" "Ryan and Vanessa are fighting." I smiled. Already, apparently money problems aren't romantic. That night, my mother left me a voicemail. "Honey, I know you're upset, but they're struggling. Taking the car just made things harder." I deleted it, because for the first time in weeks, I felt peaceful. I parked the red coupe in my driveway and looked at it through my living room window. Justice wasn't always dramatic. Sometimes it was simple. Sometimes it looked like taking back the things that belonged to you, and I thought that maybe the worst was finally over. I had no idea the universe was still preparing one final lesson for Ryan and Vanessa, and this time, it would involve handcuffs. 3 weeks after I took back the car, I was sitting on my couch with a cup of coffee and a movie I wasn't even paying attention to when my phone rang. "Emma," I smiled and answered. "Hey, you are not going to believe this." I laughed. You start every call that way now. Because your ex-boyfriend and his soulmate keep making terrible decisions. I sat up. What happened? There was a dramatic pause. Vanessa got arrested. I blinked. What? She got arrested. For what? Emma burst out laughing. Stealing cell phones. I nearly dropped my coffee. You're kidding. I wish I were. I leaned back against the couch. Stunned. Apparently, after weeks of struggling financially, Vanessa had come up with a brilliant plan. She walked into an electronics store, slipped 2 expensive phones into her bag, and tried to walk out. Unfortunately for her, the store had cameras, and security, and employees who actually paid attention. She didn't make it very far. By the time she reached the door, 2 employees were already waiting. The police arrived shortly afterward, and just like that, my ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend ended up in handcuffs. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It wasn't even about revenge anymore. It was simply unbelievable. There's more, Emma said. Of course there is. Guess who bailed her out? I didn't even hesitate. Mom and Dad. Ding. 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 I closed my eyes. Of course, apparently my parents had rushed to the police station because they couldn't leave her there. At this point, I wasn't even angry anymore. I was exhausted. Ryan was there too, I asked. Yep. And Emma snorted. He looked terrified. That image alone almost made me laugh again. Over the next few days, news spread through the family. Some relatives tried to defend Vanessa. Others openly mocked her. One of my cousins apparently said, "Who steals phones from a place covered in cameras?" Another replied, "The same woman who stole someone else's boyfriend." Even Emma had to admit that one was funny. Then, things got even worse. A few days later, Ryan called me. I almost didn't answer. Almost. Hello. Silence. Then, Maya. He sounded exhausted. What do you want? I need help. I actually laughed. No. You don't even know what I'm going to ask. I don't need to. Maya. Please. I stood and walked to the window. Rain tapped softly against the glass. How much? Silence. Then, 5,000. I nearly choked. $5,000. For legal fees? I laughed again. Ryan, please. No. I'm desperate. You should ask Vanessa. She doesn't have anything. What a surprise. Maya. Please. We spent 3 years together. I closed my eyes. There it was. The guilt. The history. The attempt to use our past as currency. You ended those 3 years in a coat closet? I said quietly. Silence. Please. No. You're really going to leave me like this? I almost couldn't believe the question. You left me first. Then I hung up. 10 minutes later, my mother called. I ignored it. Then she called again. And again. Finally, I answered. What? Maya. Ryan needs help. I laughed softly. You cannot be serious. He's going through a hard time. He cheated on me. I know. But, no. He's struggling. No. He might lose his apartment? No. Maya. I took a deep breath. Mom, why are you more worried about him than me? Silence. Then, we just don't want anyone suffering. I swallowed. Interesting. Because I suffered? And nobody seemed very concerned about that. She didn't answer. I hung up. A month later, I finally filed the paperwork, ending my relationship with Ryan completely. I thought that would be the end. I was wrong. One afternoon, my lawyer called. You need to sit down. I frowned. Why? Ryan is trying to sue for financial support. I almost dropped my phone. What? He claims he became financially dependent on you during your relationship. I stared at the wall. You've got to be kidding. I wish I were. I laughed, then laughed harder, because honestly, what else could I do? Ryan had cheated on me, moved in with another woman, tried to keep my gifts, and now wanted my money. The audacity was almost impressive. Can he actually win? Not likely. I exhaled. Good. But we still need evidence. Evidence. That part was easy. I had everything. Receipts, bank records, message, proof that I paid for almost everything, proof of his infidelity, proof that he had voluntarily left our relationship. If Ryan wanted a fight, I was ready. The hearing took place several weeks later. I wore a navy blue dress and walked into the courthouse with my head held high. Ryan looked terrible. Dark circles, wrinkled shirt, nervous expression. Vanessa sat beside him looking equally miserable. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. The hearing itself was ridiculous. Ryan's attorney tried to paint him as someone who had sacrificed opportunities during our relationship. Apparently, I had been the primary breadwinner and therefore owed him support. My lawyer nearly laughed. When it was our turn, we simply presented facts. Ryan cheated. Ryan voluntarily left the relationship. Ryan contributed very little financially. Ryan had moved in with another woman. Ryan had attempted to keep expensive gifts and property. The judge looked increasingly unimpressed. At one point, he removed his glasses and stared directly at Ryan. Sir, he said, you are asking the court to require your former partner to financially support you after you entered another relationship while still committed to her. Ryan looked down. Yes. Your Honor. The judge blinked, then slowly put his glasses back on. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from smiling. The ruling took less than 20 minutes. Request denied. Case dismissed. I won. Completely. When we left the courtroom, Ryan didn't even look at me. Vanessa looked like she wanted to disappear. I walked outside, feeling 10 pounds lighter. I thought that was the final chapter. Again, I was wrong. 2 weeks later, Emma called. You are seriously not going to believe this. I laughed. What now? Ryan and Vanessa broke up. I froze. Seriously. Yep. Apparently, the fantasy had ended. Money problems, arguments, stress, resentment. The relationship that had seemed so exciting in a restaurant closet couldn't survive real life. There's more, Emma said. Of course there is. Ryan tried moving back in with Mom and Dad. I burst out laughing. No. Yes. And they said no. I blinked. They refused. I sat down slowly. After everything, after defending him, after asking me to forgive him, my parents had finally reached their limit. Why, I asked? Emma Sahil. I think they finally realized he was using them. I looked out the window. A strange feeling settled over me. Relief. Not because Ryan was alone, not because Vanessa had left, but because I no longer cared. Their choices were no longer my burden. Their problems were no longer my responsibility. I was free. A month later, I sold the red coupe and bought myself a beautiful new SUV. I redecorated my house, started taking weekend trips, started smiling again. One evening, I sat on my back porch watching the sunset and realized something. Losing Ryan hadn't ruined my life. It had given me my life back. Because sometimes, the people who betray you don't destroy your future. They clear the path toward it. I don't know where Ryan is now. I don't know where Vanessa ended up. And honestly, I don't need to know. I learned my lesson. Love without loyalty means nothing. Family without support means nothing. And peace is worth protecting at all costs. If someone betrays you, Let them go. Take back your dignity. Take back your power. And let life handle the rest. Because eventually, it always does.